Okay, Chrissy, I'll get in the tub with you, then we can get it on.
Dance to me, I'll show you what to do.
Remember when all it took was the opening theme of a sitcom to bring the whole family together in front of the TV? Three's Company was one of the shows that defined that golden era. Premiering in 1977, it turned John Ritter, Joyce DeWitt, and Suzanne Summers into household names with the hilarious story of a man pretending to be gay so he could share an apartment with two women. From its brilliantly choreographed physical comedy and nonstop misunderstandings to the clever double entendres that kept audiences laughing, Three's Company carved out a lasting place in television history. But behind the bright lights and endless laughs were plenty of strange behind-the-scenes stories that even longtime fans may have never heard. Today, we're counting down 12 fascinating facts about Three's Company. And be sure to stick around until the very end, because our number one fact reveals a casting decision that could have completely changed the fate of this legendary sitcom. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss another great story. Now let's begin the countdown with number 12. The theme song was written by the musical father of Big Bird.
Come and knock on our door.
Come and knock on our door.
We've been waiting for you.
Come and Knock on Our Door is probably one of the most recognizable sitcom theme songs of all time, perhaps second only to Cheers. But the surprising part is that the man behind that familiar melody was also the composer who wrote the childhood songs of millions of viewers through Sesame Street. That was Joe Raposo, a musical genius with the ability to turn simple melodies into something people would remember forever. He was also the writer of classic songs such as Being Green and C is for Cookie, songs that have been associated with generations of American children.
Sunny day, sweep the night clouds away.
The Three's Company theme song has exactly the spirit of the show. Cheerful, approachable, and a little mischievous. All it takes is the first few notes to begin, and audiences already know they are about to step into a story full of laughter and funny misunderstandings. At first, the producers planned to have John Ritter, Suzanne Summers, and Joyce DeWitt perform the song themselves. But only a few minutes after the audition began, they quickly brought in professional singers, almost as fast as Jack running away, whenever Mr. Angelino showed up with the rent notice. And if you ever thought the voice belonged to Ray Charles, hold on. This is not Ray Charles, the legendary singer of Georgia on My Mind. It is another Ray Charles, whom fans often jokingly call the other Ray Charles. He performed the theme song with Julia Rinker, a member of the Ray Charles Singers, the vocal group that performed with Perry Como for decades.
You'll see that life is a ball again. Laughter is calling for you.
So the next time you find yourself humming Come and Knock on Our Door, remember that the man who wrote the childhood melodies of Sesame Street was also the man who created the opening song for the sitcom that made millions of viewers believe that three adults living together in one apartment could become one of the funniest ideas ever shown on television. Number 11. Suzanne Summers was cast because someone accidentally hit fast forward. Chrissy Snow became one of the most iconic blonde characters in television history, but few people realize that the role came from one of the strangest casting sessions in sitcom history. Suzanne Summers had already been turned down twice. The first two pilot episodes each used a different blonde actress, but neither created the chemistry the production team was looking for. Then one day, Fred Silverman sat down to review the audition tapes in fast-forward mode, as if he just wanted to skim through them. While fast-forwarding, he suddenly stopped, rewound Suzanne Summers' tape, and asked, "Wait a minute, who is that girl?" That very Sunday, Suzanne's phone rang. The voice on the other end simply said, "You're our Chrissy. Be here tomorrow. We start filming." It was as simple as that.
Listen, if he doesn't recognize me by now, then I don't want to talk to him at all.
There was no callback, and there was no screen test with the other cast members. In just one day, Suzanne Summers went from someone who had already been rejected twice to the female lead of a sitcom that was about to premiere. In fact, she was not a completely new face. Before that, Suzanne had appeared in many small roles in both film and television. But this time was different. She brought exactly the innocence, brightness, and natural charm that Three's Company had been missing.
What's there to talk over, Janet? I mean, I think he'd make a terrific roommate.
Oh, so do I.
Okay, let's ask him.
No.
Suddenly, the third pilot created the perfect combination. John Ritter's physical comedy, Joyce DeWitt's calm presence, and Suzanne Summers' innocent and lively Chrissy blended together as if the three of them had belonged in the same show from the very beginning. At that moment, ABC realized they had a winning formula in their hands. A man who always found himself in ridiculous situations, a woman who always kept her composure, and a sweet blonde girl became the symbols of an entire era of television. Sometimes the greatest successes are created through carefully planned decisions, but sometimes everything begins simply because an executive accidentally hit the rewind button at exactly the right moment. Number 10. John Ritter's son accidentally stepped into television history. One of the sweetest Easter eggs in Three's Company was never written into the script. It all began with a chance moment, but it later became a story that fans absolutely loved. In the opening sequence of Season 6, filmed at the zoo, watch the scene where Janet is feeding a goat. Then keep watching for a few more seconds. You will see a little boy toddling into the frame, as if he had wandered on to the set and decided to audition for the role of random, adorable kid number 3. That little boy was not a child actor hired for the filming. He was Jason Ritter, John Ritter's son. That day, his mother, Nancy Morgan, was standing off to the side watching. Jason probably found the goat more interesting than standing beside his mother, then casually walked right into the shot without realizing he had just created one of the show's most memorable moments.
My son loves it here. I've just been telling him he's coming to the zoo for a week. He's going, zoo.
The interesting part is that the production team did not cut the scene or film it again. They decided to keep it because everything happened so naturally and was simply too adorable. At the time, no one realized they had accidentally captured the very first screen appearance of a future actor. Many years later, Jason Ritter went on to build his career with shows such as Joan of Arcadia and Parenthood, proving that sometimes a great journey begins with a very small moment. For Three's Company fans, it feels like a gift that time left behind. John Ritter's comedy legacy seemed to take its very first steps right into the frame before the audience's eyes. It was not in the script. It was not planned in advance. It was simply a chance moment, but one warm enough to become one of the most cherished behind-the-scenes memories of Three's Company. Number 9. The chaos surrounding Chrissy's departure was color-coded.
Well, this is typical getting a girl pregnant. Only a man would do a thing like that.
By Season 5, Three's Company was no longer just a sitcom. Behind the canned laughter was a real crisis. Suzanne Summers, the show's most popular star, demanded a salary of $150,000 per episode, along with 10% of the profits. That figure was more than 3 times the $50,000 that John Ritter was earning. The producers said no. Summers stood by her demands, and in no time, the writer's room turned into a crisis management center. Every week, they had to prepare 2 versions of the same script. One version included all of Chrissy's scenes, while the other was completely rewritten so the character would not appear. To keep the chaos under control, the production team color-coded the scripts. Just by looking at the color of the script, everyone immediately knew which version to use, depending on whether Chrissy was still appearing that week or had already been written out of the story. And the story about Chrissy being in Fresno never actually happened. It was simply a storyline created to explain Chrissy's sudden absence. Meanwhile, in real life, Suzanne Summers was escorted by security to a small secondary soundstage on the studio lot in Los Angeles. There, she quickly filmed a few telephone scenes, carefully arranged so she would remain completely separated from her fellow cast members, then left as soon as she finished.
I dreamed I was walking down the street, and all of a sudden I found myself in the middle of the woods, and it kept getting darker and darker.
For the audience, everything still seemed completely natural. But for the people making the show, it was an extremely stressful time. Scripts were constantly being revised at the last minute. Replacement pages were passed around the set, and the cast tried to keep the show running while one of their most important stars was gradually being written out of the series. For a show built on misunderstandings, the biggest misunderstanding of all was happening behind the scenes. Could Three's Company continue without Chrissy Snow? Number 8. The show had more false starts than your dad's old lawnmower. Some shows only need to film one pilot before getting the green light. But Three's Company was different. The show had to try 3 times before ABC finally decided to bet on the project. In total, 3 different pilot episodes were produced before ABC officially gave its approval. The first pilot was written by MASH legend Larry Gelbart. At that time, John Ritter played David Bell, a filmmaker rather than a chef. He lived with 2 completely different roommates, played by Valerie Curtin and Suzanne Zenner. Even the theme song at the time was only a temporary track, with simple doo-doo vocals that sounded like someone absent-mindedly humming in the shower. By the second pilot, John Ritter was still part of the cast, but his character had been renamed Jack Tripper. Joyce DeWitt was cast as Janet, while Susan Lanier played Chrissy. Everything was starting to look like the Three's Company that audiences would later come to know, but one important piece was still missing. Then in early 1977, for the third pilot, Susan Lanier was replaced by Suzanne Summers. The combination of John Ritter's charming physical comedy, Joyce DeWitt's calm presence, and Suzanne Summers' innocent, energetic Chrissy created the chemistry the production team had been searching for all along. At that moment, ABC realized they had a goldmine in their hands. So Three's Company did not just knock on the door once and get invited in. The show had to try 3 times before it found the perfect cast and finally convinced ABC to open that door. Number 7, Lonnie Anderson almost changed the history of Three's Company, but she was simply too good for the role. Before Suzanne Summers came bouncing into the apartment as Chrissy Snow, another blonde bombshell was considered for the role. That was Lonnie Anderson.
You didn't forget me, did you?
How could I forget you?
She had the looks, the talent, and the charisma, but that was exactly why she was not chosen. Lonnie Anderson seemed too intelligent for a character who was written to believe that Alaska was an island and that the sun followed her wherever she went. Chrissy needed to be innocent, always wide-eyed with curiosity, and just naive enough for every misunderstanding to happen. Meanwhile, Lonnie Anderson's natural confidence and wit simply could not create that sense of innocence. And in the world of sitcoms, playing a fool is sometimes a superpower, so the role ultimately went to Suzanne Summers. With her sweet charm and genuinely innocent voice, she turned Chrissy into an icon of American television. But don't feel too sorry for Lonnie. Just 2 years later, she was cast as Jennifer Marlowe in WKRP in Cincinnati. She was still a glamorous blonde, but this time she played a woman who was intelligent, capable, and definitely not foolish. It turned out to be the perfect role for her, proving that sometimes the role you do not get is the one that leads you to the role that makes you unforgettable. In real life, Anderson also became the focus of the tabloids because of her marriage to Burt Reynolds, a couple once considered one of the iconic pairs of Hollywood in the 1980s, before everything ended in a very public and highly contentious divorce. By 2025, her passing left behind a deeply bittersweet note, bringing to a close a career defined by television success and a lasting influence on popular culture. It is hard to imagine what Three's Company would have been like with Anderson's sharp performance instead of Summers' lovable innocence. But in the end, Anderson created her own sitcom legacy. Not getting the role of Chrissy Snow simply opened the door to Jennifer Marlowe. And honestly, television was the real winner both times. Now let's get back to more Three's Company chaos with number 6. The character who was only supposed to appear once became the man who led Jack into trouble throughout the entire series. Do you remember the sharp-dressed salesman who was only supposed to appear once, but accidentally ended up taking over the whole show? That was Larry Dallas.
Larry, this guy is a psycho. Don't tell him what he's gonna do next.
Come on, Jack. He's never gonna find you up here, so stop worrying.
Open up!
Start worrying.
At first, Larry was just a guest character. He would appear, serve his purpose, and then leave like any other guest character. But everything changed when Richard Klein had incredible chemistry with John Ritter. The producers saw it and decided, yeah, let's keep him. A character who was only supposed to appear in one episode quickly became a familiar face. By season 4, Larry was even included in the opening credits, officially promoted from a professional troublemaker to an essential part of Three's company. Larry was the kind of guy who always started with, "I know a guy who can take care of this." In other words, he was a walking red flag with perfectly styled hair. The moment Larry came up with a bad idea at the Regal Beagle, Jack Tripper's entire week was almost guaranteed to turn into one disaster after another. That contrast was exactly what made the duo so successful. John Ritter's innocent panic blended perfectly with Richard Klein's confident, quick-witted style, making every scene they shared effortlessly create hilarious situations. Larry did not just bring the jokes. He was almost always the one who started the trouble. When the apartment door in Three's company finally stopped slamming, Richard Klein did not disappear from the entertainment world. He continued building his career on Broadway with productions such as City of Angels and later Waitress. He also joined the national tour of Wicked as the Wizard, appeared on television in shows such as The Americans and Blue Bloods, and took roles in several Adam Sandler comedies. Richard Klein did not stop at acting. He also worked as a director and won a Los Angeles Drama Critics Circle Award for the production of Present Laughter. Beginning in the late 1990s, he also started teaching acting, passing his experience on to younger generations of performers. The most admirable thing is that Richard Klein never tried to distance himself from the image of Larry Dallas. Instead, he always embraced the character with pride. Because in a show built on charming misunderstandings, Larry Dallas may have been one of the most entertaining misunderstandings of them all. The kind of character audiences always hoped would walk through the door again, smile, and say, "All right, hear me out." Number 5. Janet and Chrissy made every Family Feud look like nothing. On screen, Janet and Chrissy were two roommates who were always close. If they argued, it was usually about boyfriends or fighting over the bathroom, and everything quickly returned to normal before the episode ended. But behind the scenes, it was a completely different story. Joyce DeWitt and Suzanne Summers entered a Cold War that lasted for more than 3 decades, so long that it outlived the existence of quite a few small countries. It all began with Suzanne Summers' salary dispute. Time kept passing, 1 year, then 10 years, and eventually more than 30 years.
The mountain clear, or the Julienne sparkling.
I'd like Santa Monica tap.
Throughout all that time, the two women who had once shared an apartment on television hardly spoke a single word to each other. It was no longer simply about holding a grudge. It was as if they had both become accustomed to the silence between them. It was not until 2012 that things finally changed. When Joyce DeWitt appeared on Breaking Through, hosted by Suzanne Summers, they hugged, they cried, and together they remembered John Ritter, whom Suzanne called the greatest physical comedian of our time.
The physical ability of John Ritter. It was like, once I got into his rhythm, once I heard the beats of comedy, it was like playing ping pong with John Ritter. Bam, bam, bam.
That moment felt like the ending fans had been waiting for over many decades. The only difference was that this time there was no canned laughter, only genuine emotion. The reunion also carried a great deal of sadness because John Ritter had passed away in 2003, nearly a decade before his two former co-stars were finally able to reconcile. Sometimes real life needs canned laughter, even more than a sitcom, and it also needs the right ending at the right time. 32 years without speaking because of a salary dispute that lasted for only 1 season. It is hard to know whether to call that an astonishing commitment to their principles, or the longest sitcom storyline in television history. Number 4. Jeffrey Tambor was Three's company's secret master of disguise. Before making his mark as the emotionally unstable father in Arrested Development, Jeffrey Tambor delivered a fascinating series of transformations in Three's company. The remarkable part is that he did not appear just once. Tambor went on to play 3 completely different characters, as if the production team believed the audience would never realize they had just seen the same actor in the previous episode. In 1981, he played Winston Cromwell III. Later that same year, he returned as Dr. Tom Miller. Then in 1982, he appeared once again under a new identity as Dr. Philip Green. 3 characters, 3 different episodes. But behind them all was Jeffrey Tambor's unmistakable acting style. It felt like Clark Kent constantly changing clothes to become Superman, except that every time Superman came back, he had a different name and a new set of business cards, while the same familiar, awkward manner remained exactly the same. But that was still not all. In the Season 3 episode, An Anniversary Surprise, Tambor first appeared as Jeffrey P. Brooks III, the stylish new neighbor and the Ropers' real estate agent.
Oh, Mr. Brooks! Come in.
That very episode paved the way for the spin-off series The Ropers. Tambor continued playing Jeffrey P. Brooks III throughout all 28 episodes that aired from 1979 to 1980. It was also his only recurring role across the entire Three's Company franchise, and the character that most fans still remember best. The interesting part is that the show never tried to explain why the same actor kept appearing as completely different characters, and perhaps that is exactly what made it even funnier. Tambor simply kept showing up again and again, like a familiar guest walking into the sitcom with a completely new identity, then casually acting as though he had never met anyone before. No, you're confusing me with my identical twin brother. He's a doctor too, but his eyebrows are completely different. In fact, reusing supporting actors was not uncommon on television at the time.
Come on, sit back, take a big deep breath, huh? Good. Now, what seems to be your problem?
Many guest actors regularly played multiple roles in the same series, but Jeffrey Tambor took that idea to a whole new level. He was like the Swiss Army knife of sitcoms, able to convincingly transform into every kind of character, from a wealthy gentleman to a stressed doctor to an arrogant neighbor. Long before becoming a familiar face on hit television shows, Jeffrey Tambor had quietly built his own sitcom universe, with every appearance bringing a new character while still being unmistakably Jeffrey Tambor. Number 3, the on-screen romance disappeared without a trace. When Ann Wedgeworth joined Three's Company as Lana Shields, the confident, flirtatious neighbor who always had her eye on Jack, the producers believed they had found an exciting new direction for the show. But John Ritter looked at that storyline and almost said, "Wait a minute, this doesn't make sense."
Jack, why are you eating like that?
I just like to be close to my foods.
The problem was not Ann Wedgeworth, because she was a talented actress. What concerned Ritter was the way the writers had developed Lana's character. According to the script, Lana was older than Jack, and the running joke was that Jack would keep turning her down because of that. But this was Jack Tripper, the guy who was willing to chase almost any woman in a dress, like a golden retriever chasing a tennis ball. Then suddenly he became far too picky. Ritter believed that made Jack seem inconsistent and even a little hypocritical. And he was not wrong. Jack's entire character was built around being crazy about women, never around judging them by age. If the writers thought audiences would laugh at Jack constantly avoiding a confident and attractive neighbor, Ritter believed it only made his character seem strange.
Jack, it's so nice to be alone with you.
Lana, don't start anything now, okay? I got some company coming.
Jack, please, I came as a friend.
As a result, Lana's storyline never really developed. Throughout the 9 episodes of Season 4, she kept flirting with Jack. Jack kept trying to avoid her, and everything repeated itself without going anywhere. Then one week, Lana simply disappeared. There was no goodbye, no move to Fresno. There was not even an explanation. She left the show as if she had entered the sitcom version of the Witness Protection Program. The real story behind the scenes was a little more complicated. After Ritter objected to the direction of the storyline, and the writers also did not know what to do with Lana, the character's role became smaller and smaller. Eventually, Ann Wedgeworth asked to be released from her contract, and the producers agreed. But for the audience, it remained one of the most confusing disappearances in Three's Company. One day you saw the neighbor who was crazy about Jack. The next day, it was as if she had never existed. Ironically, this became one of the very few misunderstandings in Three's Company that did not require anyone to trip over the couch to explain it. Number 2, the Ropers rose quickly and faded just as quickly. Someone at ABC believed these two scene stealers deserved a show of their own. And that was how The Ropers was born. The idea behind the series was so simple, it was almost as flimsy as the walls of their old apartment building. The Ropers sell the apartment building and move into an upscale neighborhood where they completely fail to fit in. It sounded like an ambitious idea, but the reality turned out very differently. The show took two supporting characters who had always stolen the spotlight in Three's Company and placed them at the center, only to quickly discover that the spotlight does not always favor them. Almost every episode revolved around the same familiar themes. Stanley was cheap, the couple's love life was almost non-existent, and the show's humor was about as subtle as a sledgehammer. Helen constantly wanted intimacy, while Stanley came up with every ridiculous excuse he could think of to avoid it. "Not tonight, Helen. I'm organizing my toolbox in alphabetical order." Yes, that really was an excuse used in the show. The most unfortunate part was that the Ropers completely lost what had made these two characters so entertaining in Three's Company. When they appeared as nosy neighbors in just one or two scenes, the Ropers were comedy gold. But when an entire series revolved around them, everything became as heavy as lead.
You'd rather I stay?
I'd rather see what you got in the bag.
It's personal belongings.
Yeah, but whose? This has got all our silver in it.
We don't have any silver.
Well, you get a lot of money for stainless steel these days.
Their verbal sparring was hilarious in small doses, but once it became the main course of an entire series, it gradually left audiences feeling tired. Eventually, ABC realized that as well. Although the show got off to a very strong start by airing immediately after Three's Company, helping it reach number 8 nationwide during its first season, ABC moved the Ropers to Saturday nights in season 2, and the ratings immediately dropped. Not long afterward, the series was canceled after only 2 seasons and a total of 28 episodes. But the real tragedy happened behind the scenes. Norman Fell had been reluctant to leave Three's Company, so he negotiated a clause in his contract. If The Ropers was canceled during its first season, he would be allowed to return as Stanley Roper. But things did not go according to plan. The Ropers survived into a second season before it was finally canceled. By then, ABC had already found a replacement. That replacement was Don Knotts. Ralph Furley was no longer just a temporary solution. Audiences had embraced him as a standout character in his own right, and that also closed the door on the Ropers returning to Three's Company, except for one guest appearance. Sometimes, once you leave your old home, you never get the chance to go back. Number 1. Jack Tripper almost became a completely different person. Imagine a parallel universe where Jack Tripper won over audiences with witty dialogue instead of constantly tripping over furniture. That almost became reality. During the early casting process for Three's Company, Billy Crystal auditioned for the role of Jack alongside Barry Van Dyke and Michael Lembeck, who later became a director on Friends. In the end, ABC chose John Ritter, and that decision would later prove to be sitcom gold. Ritter's gift for physical comedy became the soul of the show. He could trip, stumble, and twist his body with astonishing precision, turning even a scene of Jack staggering around under the effects of tranquilizers into a classic slapstick performance.
It's a far, far better place that I go to, where you trust the people you love. And I love you both so much.
Just watch the episode Up in the Air, and you will understand why John Ritter was so highly praised. He did not simply play Jack, he almost became Jack himself. Don Knotts, who later joined the show as Mr. Furley, once called Ritter the greatest physical comedian on the planet. His falls, his sudden double takes, and the way he controlled his body turned simple misunderstandings into unforgettable moments on television. It is no exaggeration to say that without Ritter, Three's Company might have been just another sitcom about roommates. But what if Billy Crystal had been cast instead? Perhaps instead of the signature falls, audiences would have remembered the sharp dialogue. Crystal, already known for his keen observations and intelligent comedic style, certainly would have brought a completely different kind of energy. Imagine when Harry met Sally, but set in an apartment shared by 3 roommates. Jack would probably have been more polished and quick-witted, with less physical comedy but more sharp remarks and clever exchanges. Would the show still have been successful? Maybe, but it certainly would have been a very different version. Billy Crystal later made his mark as Jody Dallas in Soap, one of the first openly gay characters on American television.
Well, Jody, so you're going to get married, huh?
Yeah, it looks that way.
Isn't that nice?
It was a role that showcased his ability to combine humor with emotion, while also securing his place in television history. What about the others? Barry Van Dyke, the son of television legend Dick Van Dyke, probably would have shaped Jack into a more handsome and polished young man, less wild energy, but friendlier and more likable. Imagine a Jack who got into trouble because he trusted people too easily, rather than because he kept tripping over the couch. Michael Lembeck, with his New York roots and his later success directing Friends, probably would have brought a sharper and more experienced Jack to the role. His version would have talked more, been more sarcastic, and relied on clever dialogue to escape trouble instead of constantly falling into it. Jack might even have become the most level-headed member of the trio, letting Chrissy and Janet create the chaos while he balanced everything with dry, sarcastic reactions. In the end, ABC's gamble on John Ritter paid off beyond expectations. Billy Crystal, Barry Van Dyke, and Michael Lembeck could all have created interesting versions of Jack, but it was Ritter's innocence, quickness, and perfect comic timing that made Three's Company unforgettable. Sometimes the right actor is not just the right choice, he is the only choice. So we have just explored 12 weird facts about Three's Company. Which one surprised you the most? Or do you know another interesting behind-the-scenes story about this sitcom that we did not mention? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoy videos exploring behind-the-scenes stories and weird facts about classic movies and television shows, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. We will see you again on our next journey of discovery.